Well, welcome to the final session of this six-part series on solving the freshwater crisis in the Eastern Caribbean. Let me ask you a question. Do you remember the old expression, when opportunity knocks, be sure to answer? Well, judging by its performance over the past 40 years, the national water systems in the Caribbean are not that fortunate or chosen to be able to always recognize when opportunity is knocking. Which leaves us with a more difficult question. What do we do when opportunity does not knock? I will tell you what we do. We build a door to walk through. In October 26, 2024, Prime Minister Gaston Brown gave a speech while opening the Bobby Alley housing project, located a stone's throw from the city of St. John's. This was a project funded by the Chinese, aimed at replacing 130 dilapidated wooden structures, some of which were over 40 years old. We are focusing on this speech for one reason only, because it is one of those rare moments in which the Prime Minister chose to go public with his thoughts on his administration's ongoing investment to alleviate the island's long-standing water crisis and the challenging journey he has gone through towards building a sufficient and reliable water access in Antigua. The Prime Minister was able to weave into his speech the significant progress he had made on the water crisis by adding over 5 million gallons of water to the island's daily supply through reverse osmosis plants, that is, desalination plants. Quoting him, "In 2024, we have systematically worked to address a crisis that has persisted through all administrations, dating back to pre-independence." Quite correct. But then he continued, "The unique geographical challenges Antigua and Barbuda faces is one of the world's most water-scarce nations, requiring 100% reliance on desalination water." Say what? If the Gaston family was playing Steve Harvey's game on Family Feud back in 1984, with that answer of water, they would have become the longest winning group of contestants with a track record spanning over 4 decades. Unfortunately, this is the perspective that has made the availability of fresh water the most difficult of issues within the Eastern Caribbean over the past 40 years. Fresh water has now become a transgenerational problem in the Eastern Caribbean. Folks, this man is living just 70 nautical miles from a water surplus island, and he is still speaking about becoming 100% reliant on desalination water. Who is advising this guy? From our analysis, there are 3 things wrong with his picture. The first is that his unique geographical challenge is exactly opposite to what he's claiming. His geography places him in a region where the total water deficit of his fellow OECS states is 28% less than the available water surplus in his nearest neighbor. Secondly, what he thinks he's building in Antigua is not a 100% reliability on desalination water. What he is building is a water supply profile that is not sustainable. And thirdly, if he is really trying to convince his constituencies that the correct path is to move towards 100% reliance on desalination water, then this must be performance posturing. We have shown you the receipts to back up our claim that in the Eastern Caribbean region as a whole, the problem is not insurmountable. Sometimes when you get the feeling you are becoming lost in the solution, it is possible to work back from the tactics in order to discern the back-end strategy that may drive you to success. You see, strategy has a results delivery side, which is the front end, and an operational action side, which is the back end. To build confidence in your strategy, you have to continuously be correcting the back end to keep on the right track. In our strategy to solve the water crisis in Antigua, for instance, our back-end strategy is not to go for 100% reliance on desalination, but to operationalize a water import facility that will connect us to an accessible, inexhaustible surplus source. What we have demonstrated is how quickly we can transform the Caribbean water crisis into an economic trade opportunity with a capacity to reduce Antigua's water deficit by 70% from the very start. This is a quantum trade blueprint with built-in drivers. So what is the action plan? First, the individual islands have to adopt the water portfolio management model in order to legitimize their access to the economic benefits from importing water from Dominica. Secondly, the country has to set its target for water imports to satisfy at minimum two conditions. The first is to bring immediate relief to its citizens while it seeks financing for its long-term supply profile. The second condition is that we have to build a facility at our ports to receive water imports. The third aspect is to mobilize our local internal water demand by bringing strategic front-end stakeholders into the nation's water governance structure. This is why our solution focuses on building a multi-stakeholder water governance structure. In 2019, the Global Water Partnership produced an implementation plan on water resilience for the Caribbean. An examination of the first implementation plan, called IP 2019, indicated that many of the activities reported there did not gain traction. So, the GWP tried a second time with a new implementation plan in 2021. We do not have time here to discuss or dissect why the 2019 implementation plan received such a poor reception, but we can make some comparisons. The Global Water Partnership's IP 2021 proposes to mainstream climate resilience through water resource management. Our approach is to go through water sector governance. How is this feasible? When we have defined four conditions. 1. As soon as member state water utilities adopt a water portfolio management model. 2. As soon as a team financed through international cooperation can visit and identify the participants in different islands and their respective interests, and receive commitments from them to scale up to the level that is required for a free water trade. Then they'll be on their way to constructing a sustainable water supply profile. So, who will be responsible for this in our system? In the GWIP 2021 system, they continue to look at the high-level forum of ministers and technical officials. For us, increasing the water inflow requires us to engage legal entities in each island who can pursue their commercial interests and be driven through mutually beneficial incentives. How can this suggestion be financed? As a startup, financial support can be rendered to individual units through international financing. However, the system will maintain itself because it is a remunerative trade system. Economists usually have different levels at which they express confidence in their models. Let me tell you mine. Last year, 2024, one of my favorite science magazines, Science Alert, published an article entitled "Physicists Find Particle That Only Has Mass When Moving in One Direction." Let me read it for you. Quote, "Scientists have made a satisfying and intriguing physics discovery some 16 years after it was first predicted to be a possibility. They have discovered a quasi-particle, that is a group of particles behaving as one, that only has effective mass. That means you can only recognize that they are there when they are moving in one direction." Amazing. I took that as a confidence booster, even though the regional quantum ecosystem for trade in freshwater supplies that we have proposed will not require such a dramatic introduction as the quasi-particle. Nevertheless, think about this. It is a freshwater trade solution that you will only see when the water starts moving. You will see it when all of its component parts begin moving in one direction. And that is the direction of redistributing the surplus volumes that are accumulating in the island of Dominica, thanks to nature itself. Our confidence is also based on the fact that all 7 participants in the case of Antigua are either established institutions or economic units that can be mobilized by economic incentives and supported by association with their peers. They all have their own agenda to make their independent decisions interdependent. The concept of economic trade as a quantum system is key to our transformation in the Eastern Caribbean, because it reflects our water reality with its own version of measurement and probabilities, uncertainty and entanglement, and interdependent decision making, all moving in one direction. This quantum trade model is doing to the neoclassical economics of trade what quantum physics has done to classical physics. It is rewriting the rules book in a way that will be permanently attractive. Believe me when I say to you that when you solve the Caribbean water crisis by creating wealth, it will become more contagious than tolerating a water crisis that creates persistent poverty. We have learned another lesson from our history. In 1984, that life-saving initiative was activated by local and foreign economic interests, who mobilized an emergency fund with the only purpose of financing the barging of water from Dominica to Antigua. In our 21st century Caribbean, a freshwater trade with a startup potential of importing 42 million gallons of water per month can be initiated with an emergency cover of US $2.1 million per month, a total of $25.2 million to provide 12-month trade cover. If that level of cost causes you some concern, then you have to be totally unaware as to what is happening in our own water sector in the Caribbean. Let me reposition you ahead of the curve. What you are looking at is the Global Water Partnership announcing its new water investment transformation project in February 2025. You would see that the GWP is announcing its intention to leverage $15 billion by 2030. That is within the next 5 years. Remember, I told you that a global water partnership does not raise funds to buy influence among its partners. It uses the influence circles in which it operates in order to leverage funds. If you look at the bottom of the page, you will see implementation and the type. For example, direct support and service delivery, pilot or larger scale. Don't you get the feeling that we are arriving just in time? So, with 90% of the members of the steering committee of the GW Caribbean coming from leaders in the water resource management sector in the Caribbean countries, our trade proposal is funding ready for the GWP in the Caribbean to leverage $30 million to finance a team to broker participation among business units in the Caribbean who can contribute immensely to the solution, as well as to provide 12 months of trade cover. Let us, in the final analysis, have a closer look at the main actors in this regional trade in freshwater resources. Let us start with DOWASCO. In 2016, I made a presentation to the board of DOWASCO. Initially, they thought I was coming to make a pitch to buy water from them. So you can imagine their surprise when I began my presentation by saying that my main purpose was not to purchase water from your corporation. I was seeking to show them a means through which they would be able to finance their capital budget into the near future. The WASCO can be facing in the startup phase a demand for 42 million gallons per month. That is a revenue earner of $232.6 thousand per month, or $2.8 million additional revenue per annum. The WASCO does not have the local population to generate such additional cash intake. The WASCO's infrastructure projects over the last 5 years has totaled $5 million, which can be liquidated within 3 years of participating in this trade. What about the water transshipment deal? What about it? In 2015, we incorporated a water shipping company in the island of Dominica with the following metrics. A startup investment of $5 million in 2 water barges. The project was determined to be feasible if it could transport at minimum 1.3 million gallons per trip. With a potential demand of 42 million gallons per month, this trade can support a supply convoy of 5 barges making 4 trips per month. The incentive structure here is also attractive. Landing supplies at the port of St. John at an FOB of $45 per 1,000 gallons and charging a delivery offer price of $50 per 1,000 gallons is competitive with our estimation of desalination production costing an estimated $74 per 1,000 gallons in 2016, which is 48% higher than what this option would offer. When we then look to the water trucker's delivery price of $110 per 1,000 gallons, their charge rates are a huge 120% higher. Then we have the Port of St. John's, Antigua. The Port of St. John's has 2 reasons to be involved. In its 2020 expansion drive, the Port of St. John's, Antigua included plans to build a 4 million gallon water storage tank at the port to receive fresh water. This was concurrent with the Port Authority's intention of acting as a service provider to its clients, cargo vessels, cruise ships, and luxury yachts. In building this capacity, the Port Authority also sought to realize its vision as a regulator. This meant that they wanted to allow Antiguan businesses themselves to move further along the supply chain to structure water delivery services based on facilities provided at and by the port. This is a classic example for other ports in the region who are also members of the Port Association of the Caribbean. But the port in Antigua has another significant card to play. It has been designated as the launching pad for first responders in the event of a natural emergency in the Eastern Caribbean. This team, organized under the umbrella of SIDEMA, includes the U.S. Army and the U.K. Army. The volume that has to be managed by the port would include a turnaround that makes available a net of about 8 million gallons per month. SIDEMA is the labourer in the system. In French patois, labourer means gratuity. SIDEMA adds to the contribution of the Port of St. John. The economic driver for SIDEMA's participation is its preparatory coordination of emergency first responders. Having designated the Port of St. John's as a staging point for natural disaster relief in the Eastern Caribbean sub-region, SIDEMA may want to invest in a lien on the future availability of bulk water at the port. This provides a ready access to an inexhaustible supply chain from Dominica's water surplus. It can begin with a volume demand of 2 million gallons per month. The credit union is formative in mobilizing a second front line for water demand in Antigua. What I am calling the Antigua Credit Union League is correctly identified as the Antigua and Barbuda Cooperative League Limited. This company represents 7 credit unions in Antigua that service over 43,000 members in 2023. Antigua has a population of about 94,000, in which there's supposedly about 37,000 formed households. It is obvious that many of the members of these credit unions are in households that suffer from water shortages. The League may wish to promote a water assurance scheme guaranteeing subscribers the opportunity to purchase upwards of 400 gallons per week during the crisis months. If 15,000 of the League's members, that's less than 50%, buy into this scheme, that would mean a water demand mobilization of 24 million gallons per month. The incentive structure for the Credit Union League in this trade arrangement is wider than that for any other existing frontline supplier. It has 3 parts. Facilitative. The League can organize the funding of sub-agents to import bulk water and to redistribute the same to members within the distribution chain. Acting as a frontline provider itself, the League can lease facilities from the port to make its imported supplies available to all potential buyers. But remember, the League can also act as a coping mechanism in that economy. The League can create a parametric assurance plan for the coping activities in this water stress scenario by financially backing the import redistribution of fresh water to its membership based on the arrangement available at the port. You can see how this trade spurns economic initiatives. The Credit League system will open business opportunities for water truckers who may or may not be connected to the credit unions. The credit union water assurance scheme also allows them to expand their customer delivery base and increase their earning potential. Finally, there is our old Antigua Water Authority, the APUA, which has three motivators for seeking an involvement in such a plan. The first is water imports will effectively be used to satisfy more of the immediate needs of the population, bringing more water to people without enlarging the subsidy burden. The water supply profile becomes less dependent on desalination water, and an opportunity to invite investments in water recycling technology can be launched, which can utilize the growth in the supply coming in from imports. What this solution does is that it begins the process in Antigua and the rest of the Eastern Caribbean of building Caribbean water security based on involvement of Dominica's endogenous water surplus. It forms the basis for a ready-made investment by the GWP Water Investment Transformation Initiative. That initiative can provide the purpose for the Global Water Partnership to utilize US $30 million, which is less than 1% of their expected leverage of US $15 billion by 2030. If there is one theme that we wish to leave with you from this series, it is this: when opportunity does not knock, build a door. Thank you very much for watching. And if you have found this series informative, please leave a comment, hit the like button, and share it with all of your friends.